from Councillor Stubbings and ask for any comments and questions around the room. Councillor Stubbings.
Thank you, Chair. A comment, if I may. You've been too modest to mention it, but I'd like to compliment you on the work that you've done in terms of the improvement in this area. The February 2015 visit from representatives of the DFE, very encouraging feedback from that, and indeed from the ministers. And I would also, if I may, Chair, like to compliment the senior officers and their staff that have been involved in turning this round, because this is a significant achievement on the part of the Isle of Wight Council, and I feel it needs to be flagged up when we get hammered enough when things go badly. I think we need to make sure we big up when things go well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbings. I can only underline and support those comments, and I'm sure Mr. Ashley will take those back to his team. Councillor Stevens.
The independent administration put a lot of money and to, if you like, back the resource in our Hampshire colleagues and indeed our own Isle of Wight Council officers to move this forward in a more positive way. I want to touch on financial and budget implications, because this is, whilst we're getting things right, there is an on-cost with this. And I note that paragraph 51 is actually saying the last sentence, or part of the last sentence, is indicating the service has managed the demand and composition of placement types within the allocated budget. And I want to point that out because it's very, very important to make sure that in these times when we're actually as we've said in the past, we haven't got any cloth to cut these days, and I'm looking at making sure that we get these things right. From your perspective, Chair, can you reassure us and those gathered here this evening that there is not an overspend of any significant amount coming through in this forthcoming year, or in the forthcoming quarterly? So it might be something that leaves out the water, but at this moment in time, are we happy with the direction and are we happy with the financial prospects they're in?
Thank you. I wonder if I could actually ask Mr. Ashley to comment. He's at the coal face, of course.
Yes, thank you, Chair. In terms of looked after children and placement costs, we actually saved £400,000 in 14-15 as a result of bringing children back from expensive mainland placements to the island within their communities. And we're aiming to achieve a further saving next year of around about £100,000. So we are within budget and there's no increased overspend. There wasn't any overspend last year. I wasn't anticipating any this year. I have to say though to the committee, as always, this is volatile because it's children's lives. So, but as we stand, we're in a good position and there's no indication of any overspend.
I just wanted to highlight that what was in that paragraph is very, very important. We are working within a budget. We are, if you like, looking to do the best for our children, and also there's nothing like being best to bring them home. I think that's what we've got to say. And if that means saving money, let's continue down that path. It needed highlighting. Thank you.
And thank you for doing that. We can do very good things and we can do it within the budget. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to again show my gratitude both to yourself and your predecessor, Councillor Priest, in the work that you've both done in getting us to this place. I think one of the important things we have to consider is that we don't become complacent. Things can still go wrong, and I think we have to keep our eyes on the ball. This is a very important part of the work of this council, and I know that we won't lose sight, and I think it's worth remembering that in the future. We have to keep it in the forefront in front of our minds. Thank you.
I'm sure if Councillor Lundy were here, he would be saying that as well, but that is why I sought to say when introducing this report, I think it's more appropriate for the first line to read this report aims to provide assurance. I don't see any other indications around the room. We've set out a recommendation which has been seconded, simply to note the progress set out in the report. So again, Councillor Fuller.
For.
Councillor Hillard.
For.
Councillor Jordan. For. Councillor Smart.
For.
Councillor Stevens.
For.
Councillor Stubbings. For. And I'm for as well. Full house again, so that is noted and passed. Someone else is going now. We move to item 5, Councillor Stubbings, your report on information, advice and guidance services.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm delighted to bring this paper forward. The Executive will recall that in February's meeting we decided that we would develop a strategic partnership with the Isle Help Consortium of Independent Voluntary Sector Providers on advice, information and guidance. We were charged at that time with going away and setting up this partnership and then bringing it back to Executive. That's the paper that's before you today, E1. It has 2 huge advantages, Chair. One is the proper use of resources across the sector in terms of information and advice provision. The strategic partnership will allow the Isle of Wight Council and Isle Help to work together in terms of improving the level and the quality of advice that people receive on all manner of subjects. What it also does, Chair, is to guarantee the future of this provision for the next 3 years, which was a significant and important consideration in developing this understanding between ourselves and Isle Help. I would like to, if I may, Chair, make comment of the excellent work that our own officers, particularly Martin Johnson and Helen Miles, put into this. Tremendous amount of work has gone in, but in addition to that, to Lee Hodgson from Isle Help and to Joe Dare from Isle Help, because without their cooperation and considerable effort put in on their part, this paper would not have come forward at the time that it has. I believe, Chair, that this is a model for potential future arrangements between the Isle of Wight Council and other partners, which resolves the thorny issue of us putting stuff out, as it were, to the private sector, but retains a significant degree of control within the Isle of Wight Council, but allows us to alleviate some of the resource and capacity difficulties that we're currently experiencing, and to make best use of the expertise that's out there in the market. So, Chair, I recommend this paper to my fellow members without any qualification. The recommendation is to enter into a strategic partnership with Isle Help for the provision of advice, information and guidance, and I'm sure members will have fully read the appendices attached to the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Could I ask for a seconder at this stage? Councillor Fuller, and any questions or comments on the table? Councillor Stevens.
A couple of comments. I'm very pleased with the shape this has taken and come forward. It's been a bit of a time to do it, and to get a 3-year period, 3-year term, I think is a step in the right direction. We need to make sure that our partners and stakeholders that we work with and collaborate with to provide service actually can plan, do their business planning, do their staffing, and build that capacity which we need. I think annual contracts, when we're going down this sort of route, are, if you like, 20th century, not 21st century. And I think we need to be moving along in this direction. I can't speak highly enough of the people involved. As you quite rightly said, Steve, we've got good people, good expertise and talent, and a willingness to do for this island, and I think that speaks volumes. So, honestly, 3 good years plus out of this, and I sincerely hope that during the 3rd year that we start to renegotiate, because I know this is going to be a real success. And thanks to all those that worked on it, but I think it's also an area where we link into others' expertise, and we build our own capacity through their capacity. And I think that's something where our resources are diminishing a bit. Thank you.
vote. As set out in paragraph 50, Councillor Fuller.
For.
Councillor Hillard.
For.
Councillor Jordan. Councillor Smart.
For.
Councillor Stevens. Councillor Stubbings. And I'm for. 7-0. Passed. I now turn to Councillor Fuller. Item 6, the updated local development scheme.
Thank you, Chairman. I haven't got very much to add. One of the things I was speaking to with Paul Thistlewood, because he thought that this may be prompted by scrutiny last night, was the importance that this payment to be distributed to town and parish councils. That has already happened, so town and parish councils are aware of this. One thing that I would like to highlight is that the area action plan, which is the timetable as set out on page B23, there are, the timetable that we are putting forward for the area action plans is very, very challenging, and particularly in light of the capacity that we have within the planning departments. But for me, I wish to go on public record to state that it is important for these timeframes are met. I get a lot of feedback from local businesses, from town and parish councils, concerned about the slippage that has occurred for many years up to now, and I'm on the case, and I would like to ensure that there is no further slippage, and I will be working to ensure that is less likely to happen. I will be talking with officers to ensure that that is the case, because I don't think we can afford very much more time lapses on this. But I would like to recommend that we resolve that the proposed LGS is brought into effect on Tuesday the 26th of May, and also authorise the Head of Planning and Housing Services to make amendments to the proposed LGS in consultation with myself and the Chair of the Planning Committee. Thank you.
Would you like to second that?
Thank you very much, Councillor Smart.
And if I could just say how much I welcome this. We really have, for the whole developments across the island, to get the framework in place, because we have people that wish to come here, come to the island, invest, but they get bogged down in the fact that we can't say, yes, you can go there, and so for that reason it's imperative, as Paul said, we just join or get on with this.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens.
Briefly, what I'd like to think is that this is going to be put out through to the Chamber of Commerce and indeed others, so that we have this joined up thinking, because it's to be welcomed. I would have liked to have seen also a fast track planning framework, so that we could actually not only describe and point out geographically where we are, but also look to make capital out of saying what we can and what we will allow to be provided in certain areas. Thank you.
Councillor Fuller again.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stevens. I am speaking to officers concerning the fast track planning. I've spoken to the Federation of Small Businesses, because sometimes they feel that planning policies can be overly bureaucratic, and I think one of the things we need to do is simplify the planning system and look at what best practice there are in other authorities, so we can learn from mistakes that have been made elsewhere and actually build upon that in the future. But I thank you for your comments. Thank you, Councillor Stevens.
Thank you. And I'd just like to comment, obviously planning was my baby for 15 months before Councillor Fuller took it over, and I'm really glad, Paul, that you're driving these things forward that were thought about when I was there, but you're really bringing some good work forward, and I think you should be congratulated for that, and particularly in a difficult budgetary situation with planning as well.
I think that is the real threat that we have. The capacity numbers really does cause me some concern, and I think we need to be able to work with our town and parish council partnerships to assist us in the difficulties that we have coming forward.
Yes. There being no other indications to speak, we will the recommendations being set out and seconded. So Councillor Fuller?
For.
Councillor Hillard?
For.
Councillor Jordan?
For.
Councillor Smart?
Absolutely for.
Councillor Stevens?
For.
Councillor Stubbings? For. And I'm absolutely for as well. Seven. So that's 7 again. That's passed. Yes, we move now to Councillor Jordan, section 7 on the agenda, and firstly the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act item.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to add too much to this. It comes about as a result of legislation in 2014, out of which came a piece of legislation called the Community Trigger, giving local authorities and other stakeholders responsibility for dealing with antisocial behaviour. What this paper is asking us to do is to allow the Managing Director or Head of Paid Services, it may be, to take decisions on an almost an emergency basis if and when required. And that's simply what we're asking for here, to accept and approve that development and in this committee report, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. That is seconded by Councillor Stubbings. Any other comments or questions? As there are none, I think we'll go straight to the votes on the recommendation that appears in paragraph 32, which I think has been adequately set out by Councillor Jordan. Councillor Fuller?
For.
Councillor Hillard?
For.
Councillor Jordan?
For.
Councillor Smart?
For.
Councillor Stevens? For. Councillor Stubbings? For. And I'm for as well. Another 7, and that is passed. Your next item, Councillor Jordan, substance misuse strategy.
Thank you, Chair. This is for approval as of the strategy set out at Appendix A. There's a lot of work gone into this by members of our public health team, specifically members, one of which is Brian Herbert sat in the corner, under the guidance of our Director, Rita here. Lots and lots of work. It's a strategy to deal with drugs and alcohol across the island, and the report is asking that we approve this strategy. It has no financial implications outside of the ring-fence public health budget and is part of that budget. And as the strategy and the work involved in that strategy is comprehensive and complete, I would ask that we absolutely approve this strategy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Is there a second on that? Councillor Stubbings?
And a comment, if I may.
Certainly.
Thank you. I'd really like to endorse exactly what Councillor Jordan has just said. This is a very comprehensive and interesting paper. And I must confess I learned an awful lot from it, so I'd like to thank officers for their input into it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Stevens?
Councillor Stubbings actually stole my words, but I felt like I would say this is a very comprehensive paper, and it's got total support from myself.
Well, I bet you learned a few things as well. In that case, the recommendation is to approve the strategy. This is paragraph 36. It's been seconded. Councillor Fuller?
For.
Councillor Hillard?
For.
Councillor Jordan?
For.
Councillor Smart?
For.
Councillor Stevens? For. Councillor Stubbings? For. And I'm for. Another full house, so that is approved. And the remaining one of your 3 items, Councillor Jordan, paper I.
Thank you, Chair. This is the Integrated Transport Sustainable Fund and Rights of Way Capital Programme for 15-16. It has a sum of money listed and a number of projects listed by name and by amount. Some of this is slippage, some of it is to create, which will come at a later time, I think it's May or June, executive, a community highways fund, which is listed on Appendix A I6 as 100,000. we're asking to approve this fund as listed by the schemes already identified and outstanding for some considerable time, Chairman.
Thank you. So second up, Councillor Hillard, and again, questions and comments, Councillor Hillard. Sorry, did you wish to add something, Councillor Hillard?
Thank you, Chair. I should have just added that you will note at the bottom of I6, colleagues, that an item we voted on earlier is actually listed in this fund also, the Cliff Lifton Bridge, to just bring that to your attention.
Thank you for that. Yes, Councillor Hillard.
Thank you. I'd just like to bring to one's attention the fact that obviously within this there's allocation to sustainable transport projects and obviously our island's rights of way. Both things I think we would agree are quite important both for tourism and the health and well-being of our residents. So I'm very pleased to see that this administration, this council is committed to obviously car-free transport and well-being.
Thank you. And Councillor Fuller.
I think I should declare an interest that I'm a member of the Local Access Forum, but I'm very pleased to see the proposals that we've set aside for capital programmes for rights of way. I think rights of way have had it very difficult in the last few years, and I think this investment into some of the paths that we've lost following coastal erosion last year is very, very positive. So I'm very pleased to see that, and hope in the future we can see more money being marked for this important part of our highway structure, our rights of way. So important for tourism. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. I would just add a comment that whilst I accept Councillor Fuller's welcome comments, 2.2 million, it sounds a lot of money, is a lot of money. It in no way is going to address the schemes that are required and of which we have an extensive list already. And whilst this is welcome and will address some of the larger schemes to some extent, there remains and will remain, it seems, a lot of smaller schemes still to be funded and done that fall outside of the PFI contract. I think we just need to, whilst this is welcome and these schemes are badly needed and we will get on with those, there remains lots of other schemes that won't be addressed by this funding. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, I think we all recognise that. As there are no... Councillor Barry, if you would like to comment.
Can I just thank you on behalf of the residents of Gregory Avenue in Marlborough, who are now, when this goes through, particularly the school children, won't have to walk down a busy country road to get to the bus in the morning and come home from school in the dark particularly. It's safe. It's been some 20 years I've been involved in this, and now it looks like it's finally going to happen. And I thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. We are very pleased to be able to deliver this for you. It is a...
I hope it's worth the wait. I see no more hands, so we have the recommendation. Councillor Jordan has pointed us to paragraph 33 on page I5. It is seconded. So, Councillor Fuller.
4.
Councillor Hillard.
4.
Councillor Jordan.
4.
Councillor Smart.
4.
Councillor Stevens. 4. Stubbings. 4. And I'm 4. Again, 7 members cast. Councillor Stevens, I tried to steal your thunder earlier. I apologise. This is now your paper, the private sector PLC partnership.
You've given me one plain as a nose on your face, but there we go. Jade, I have indeed. And 3-4 pages to the report. And what it is setting up a joint venture with, and I've got to read the name, Public Sector PLC Facilitating Limited, PSPF is what we will call it tonight. It's a way really of actually adding capacity to what we're dealing with regard to looking at assets that we can dispose of. Now, I think that when we're trying to raise funding, capital funding in certain areas, this is probably the best way that we can do it. It costs us nothing, but also within the agreement, it allows us to, if we can find a better price elsewhere, then it doesn't tie us into anything other than actually we can go and search for that better price. The 50-50 split on agreed cost going through with PSPF is something that people might raise their eyebrows to, but there's work to be done in the background, and it's also allowing us to look at what the situation is, and if we can still make that extra amount of money, it doesn't preclude us from doing that. So I want to leave it at that, and we've got, within the recommendation, we've got 5, which is on paragraph 38, J7, we've got 5 areas and bullet points. So if you want me to go through them, I will. I'm quite happy to speak all night, as you know, but if you can read them, it might save a little bit of time. What I would say is that I'll bring in Mr. Metcalfe in a moment, who's been involved with this, if that's all right. But what I would say is that there's a couple of things coming from scrutiny, and I know that I'm not going to steal Councillor Stewart's thunder, because I know what it's like to be sitting here and waiting your turn. So thank you very much indeed. I'm going to leave it at that, and I'll leave it open to questions and debate, and obviously scrutiny would like to mention there are a couple of queries or not.
Well, shall I ask for a second of the recommendation first?
Happy to second it, Chair.
From Councillor Stubbins.
Wonderful.
And Mr. Metcalfe, you're invited to comment first, and come to Councillor Stewart, which is the
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Stevens has summed up the proposition as set out in the paper. I think probably 2 or 3 comments I would make in addition. Firstly, this does give us the capacity to look at our portfolio in a creative way and in a different way. And whilst we might ultimately choose to go to disposal, one of the things that I'm very strong on and want to try and push is trying to generate additional revenue from that portfolio. However, we can create that, because we are revenue poor as a local authority, so if we can create something that generates us revenue, then I think that's positive. I understand there may be some concerns about a 50-50 split, but we're getting a huge amount of technical, professional and other advice from our partner in this particular joint venture. They can bring that to the table. If we were wanting to do the same thing ourselves, and have to go out and buy an outhouse appointed to provide that particular service for us, they're bringing that to the table as part of some of their initial feasibility work. So we'll do a lot of feasibility studies first, which is at risk to them, although we will contribute to that. And only once we've had a look at a feasibility study will we then decide whether or not that project should go forward. So there is still, the council still has the opportunity to say, actually, we don't like the feasibility study, we don't like the terms of that way, so we'll deal with that particular property in the more traditional way of disposing of what we need to it. So a lot of what we're setting out here is at little risk to the council, until such point as we push the button and say, yes, let's go for it. And at that particular point, the proposed partner also has access to capital that they can bring to the table to help make things work and to help bring things forward. So we're giving ourselves capacity, giving ourselves access to capital, giving ourselves much needed resource to help take things forward, but we're not losing control of our property portfolio until such point as we agree the scheme on what it's scheme forward. So I think it's an extra string to our bow, if you like, in terms of trying to generate revenue that we need to continue as an organisation.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I've obviously asked a few questions about this, and this appears to be a scheme that retains council control over matters, and in a simplistic way, we do not need to go with anything where the 50% would be any less than the 100% that we could secure by our own offices. So it seems, as Dean, the recommendation says, it's simply there's an additional option for us to do something perhaps a little more creative we could not do within the organisation. So, Councillor Stone. Thanks, Chair. I think you just used the word creative, which I think is very important here. And it's very important that this is understood not merely as a proposal that brings forward a means by which we can dispose of our assets. It's a proposal which brings forward options that are open to us in terms of the proper utilisation of our assets. And as Mr Metcalfe just mentioned, there are certainly some assets which the Council currently holds which potentially are not being realised fully in terms of what they might generate for us. And I had the privilege of meeting with one of the representatives of PSPF when they first came down with this proposal, and I was convinced that the level of expertise that they have, the potential of bringing to the table in regard to this is quite considerable. And I was also persuaded by the potential that they have for generating extra funding towards projects which the Council may wish to take part in. So I was certainly persuaded by that, Chair, and I would just like it to be mentioned very fully here in the Chamber today so that nobody gets hold of the wrong end of the stick here. We are not giving away the survey or the option of being able to realise our assets fully, either in terms of disposal or in terms of utilisation. We are merely entering into a partnership, a joint venture with a company which specialises in this area, and that we will, by doing that, make full use of our assets. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. No, I was just seeing if there are any other executive members who wanted to speak. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you. I can only echo what's been said, but I think we have, as a council, we have to learn by mistakes that's been made in the past, and certainly selling off assets at below market value is a real concern to the wider community out there, and I think we need that assurance to ensure that we make the right decisions in the future, and I welcome this opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Councillor Stewart, you were hoping to say something.
The comments under C of the paper I submitted highlight the scrutiny views. It would be fair to say there was a little bit of surprise in scrutiny because they didn't quite understand what was happening here and had a fairly short time to kind of get into it. But as Councillor Stubbs has highlighted, I think it's seen as an opportunity and a very practical approach. There was one quick question was about the period the partnership would be in place for, but I suspect that's not a finite date on that basis. And then there was about the assurance that it wouldn't just avoid all other options that you've already given. So in terms of scrutiny's views, I think they've been well addressed. I suppose I was sitting here listening to what was being said and thinking, I'm sure we have a good, effective monitoring process in place to see the benefits.
Mr Metcalfe might like to comment on that.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think part of the process of evaluating each of the proposals to take them forward is to look in some sort of detail as to what the business case would be for taking the project forward, where the finance would come from, what returns would be, and then to look at that against other possibilities for the model. So if we took County Hall, for example, and said, let's do something with County Hall, we look at the option for disposal, we look at the option for investment, and we look at each one through a very detailed and organised four-step process. And if at any stage in that process, looking at comparisons and benchmarks, we didn't feel that that was the right way to go forward, then we'd be able to knock on the head and go somewhere else. So I think the process is well set out and will be encapsulated in the heads of agreement and the partnership arrangement in the LLP, so it'll be absolutely written into the company agreement.
I'm grateful, Chair. Thank you. I saw the pen of the county press moving there. I don't think there's any suggestion that we are getting rid of County Hall. If we turn then to the vote on this matter, the recommendation has been set out, it has been seconded. Councillor Fuller? For. Councillor Hillard?
For.
Councillor Jordan? For. Councillor Smart?
For.
Councillor Stevens?
For.
Councillor Stubbings? For. And I'm for. 7. Thank you. We move then to item 9, consideration of forward plan. Forward plan is before us in our additional document papers. I will simply go around the room clockwise and see if any member has anything that they wish to give a brief chance to refresh your
minds about what's on there, but I've got nothing myself to say, so having given members a moment, Councillor Hill, I think you've indicated.
Thank you. I did notice that the proposed relocation of Seagrove Bay toilets would usually be under the sustainability portfolio, not resources anymore, so I don't know if that would be better to comment on myself, but other than that,
We can check that. Anything from Councillor Stevens apart from the slight sense of upset?
Councillors are welcome before.
Anything on the other side of the table? In that case, I think we can move to item 10, members' question time. We've only got one member left. We've got shaking his head, so nothing there. Nothing's been submitted in writing. We come then items 11 and 12. Item 11 is in relation to exclusion of public and press for paper K. Before taking that step, if we need to, I think it would be appropriate if we can deal with as much of this matter as possible in public. It is a paper that has attracted attention and it is obviously important. We know that there is a significant amount of confidential information that executive members have been provided with. It was possible, I understand, I'm afraid I wasn't there for the start of the scrutiny committee, but it was possible on Tuesday evening for the matter to be considered largely without confidential information being made public or revealed. So rather than simply, rather leadenly excluding people, perhaps I could ask Councillor Stevens to introduce the paper, and if we could proceed with the debate without excluding the public. Of course, if we do need to get into a debate which involves discussion amongst us of that confidential information, rather than simply noting its existence in the public papers, then we will look to exclude. But Councillor Stevens, do you think you can proceed on that basis?
Absolutely. I think that, as long as we can keep the public and the media involved within this, and we're not trying to hide things, we're trying to, if you like, and if I can just touch on the strategic context, which is on K4, the completion of the transaction with ASDA will be consistent with the corporate priorities on board of support growth in the economy, etc. And so that's what the aim and the objective of this is. I'd like to say that we've got an agreement with ASDA, and I'm going to pick and choose my words very carefully here, because there was an agreed price which was agreed, but as they've come back, and I think this is well documented, as they've come back with another figure, and through the powers of negotiation, and I'll bring in Mr. Metcalfe in a moment, if I may, to pick his way through his dealings. But I think where we've come to is an agreement of sorts, and we need to make sure that local authorities these days, I will touch on this, local authorities these days have continued problems with funding, whether it be revenue or capital funding. We have services to provide, we have elements of our estate that need attending to, and we need to make sure that we have adequate reserves. I think that paints the picture of where we are and why we have to at times relieve ourselves of certain assets. We come to a point here where the land was valued in in days gone by, and there's been obviously revaluations, etc., put forward. What one person agrees is a price and a thought, and what another one does is a matter of the negotiation. There's some negotiation behind the scenes with this. We would like to continue. We would like to continue to make sure that and you will note from the recommendations that we get through to the 1st of September at the latest to agree and take things forward with ASDA. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to open it up. I don't want to tread on anyone's toes, but I'm being a gentleman as I always am with regard to where we are and where we should be moving things forward. But I would like to say a big thank you to John Metcalf for his work here with ASDA, and indeed looking at what we've got and what we can offer. And I think that if we can make this move forward, then I'm up for this. And I think that the recommendations give an indication of where we are, what we're trying to achieve, and how insistent we are to close the deal on that land, and get the best value that we possibly can, not just for the Isle of Wight Council, but for the people of this island. Leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Mr Metcalf, you've been invited to add as you can. I think Councillor Stevens has said out pretty much what he can, but is there anything else you feel would be appropriate to say?
Yes, Chairman, if I may, I think 4 points that are perhaps relevant. Firstly, the agreement with ASDA was always subject to ASDA securing a satisfactory planning permission. That is at the heart of the negotiation we're now having with ASDA, whether or not they have a satisfactory planning permission. I think our view is they do, their view is they don't, and ultimately we could end up spending a lot of time in court trying to agree with who is right, who is wrong in that particular instance. It's been 4 years since we went out to the market. We did openly tender the site, and we had 4 very strong bids for the site when we tendered it 4 years ago. It's taken this long to get to a position where there is a planning permission on the site, and we have an agreed position. We have a position with ASDA. As I say, we feel it's a satisfactory planning permission, and our legal advice is the same. However, the food store market has changed, and we've provided in the confidential appendix 2 for members of the executive a very detailed breakdown of how that food store market has changed and the kind of things that are going on in the supermarket world at the moment, many of which are in the press. Some of the ones in that appendix are clearly confidential and are known to us through our advisors in this regard. We have taken and worked with external legal advisors in terms of trying to get to a resolution, a negotiation of a solution, and have worked exceedingly hard with them and through the negotiation. And again, for the record, we have set out a very detailed piece of legal advice in the confidential appendices, which helps us to the recommendations set out in the paper. It's not, I admit, an ideal position. One would like to think that when you've got a contract and you've signed a contract, then the contract will be completed as everyone envisaged when it was signed. Realistically, that seems not to be the case these days, and we've had to go through this process of renegotiation. I think we're probably at the best place we can be, but I do think that I can't, and it is a risk, and I have to point it out to them. There is a risk that when we get to the 1st of September, if we agree this, there is still a possibility that something else might happen. I am aware of a number of deals across the country where effectively engrossed documents have been signed and exchanged and things still haven't happened, so that is still a risk, which is why we are asking for your authority to go straight to court if we don't complete on the 1st of September. That's hugely important. I think we have to take that action. But I do believe that, my heart of hearts, I do think this will go through on the 1st of September. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Metcalfe. Councillor Fuller.
First of all, Chairman, thank you very much for allowing this to be heard in public. I think there is a lot of public interest on this, and again, I'm not wanting to sort of like step on anybody else's toe. I think that there was a lot of ongoing negotiations prior to during the planning process on this, and agreement was seemingly made. And it is regrettable, but these things happen within planning. Conditions need to change. The applicant often wants to alter the conditions because they're not properly future-proof. So I can understand where as they're coming from, and I'm quite happy to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbings. Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to support Councillor Stevens' compliments to Mr Metcalfe for the work that he's done on this. I've seen the numbers. I've known what the numbers have been for a while now. I think Mr Metcalfe's got grey through these negotiations. I think it's been very difficult and protracted. However, I remain of the view that this is a very good deal for the Isle of Wight Council and for the people of the Isle of Wight. It's unfortunate that the numbers are actually confidential because I think they might assist some people to have a greater understanding of how good this deal actually is in the current context of land values and of supermarket performances. However, I absolutely agree with Mr Metcalfe that these two recommendations need to go together. I think we're at the end of the line here in relation to negotiation with ASDA, and I would only be happy to go ahead with this if we went along with recommendations 1 and 4, both of which need to be applied here. I think this has got to be the end of the line in this. But other than that, Chair, I remain of the view that this is actually a very good deal. Thank you, Councillor Stubbings. I was going to come in subsequently, but you've actually said all that I would want to say, apart from simply well done, John. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. I'll choose my words carefully if I can, and understand if Mr Metcalfe is unable to answer this, but in part he did address this. I wonder if it's possible to explain to us, without identifying commercial enterprises or perhaps even authorities, but if he can identify that the Isle of Wight is not the only authority that has been confronted with actions of these kinds, and that there is evidence in the public domain that would demonstrate other commercial enterprises and other local authorities enduring the same process and same situation that we are in. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman. I can't remember the two councils that were involved, but there were two councils that it was in the press probably 3 or 4 weeks ago who had been through a similar situation with Tesco's. I think it was somewhere in the Somerset, Dorset area, and ultimately Tesco's didn't proceed with the agreed development of the council's land in that particular area. There were 2 councils involved. But actually Tesco's made a payment in settlement to those 2 councils that actually, I think, ended up getting agreed through the court. So there is one, and I'm certainly quite happy to go back to the file and confirm who those councils were, or which those councils were. But this is something that is happening across the country, and as I say, for the record, there is some stuff in the purple papers that give those examples for members of the executive. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Stevens.
Just wanted to come back to signpost people, especially the media, to page K4, paragraph 18, which might give you an idea of the framework we're working in and what we're dealing with. And I think it's important if you do look at that and look at the bullet points to know and take that on board. And that's borne out through the paper and obviously within the confidential paperwork that we're not displaying tonight. But I think that we've come as far as we can, and I'd like to actually start to move on paragraph 33, the recommendation. And I will read the recommendation so that there's no one that's Yes, incorrect. Now, options 1 and 4 will be adopted. 1. Agree to vary the terms of the agreement for lease with ASDA as set out in confidential Appendix 1 and enter into a deed of variation on the 15th of May 2015 and complete the transaction on the 1st of September 2015. And 4. Agree to issue legal proceedings against ASDA for breach of contract should it not complete the revised agreement with the Council on the 1st of September 2015. I want to move that recommendation, but what I want to also add is that is the seriousness of this Council and the officers of this Council take this, and we want to complete this by September the 1st. So that is a stamp of where we're going and the progress we've made through Mr. Metcalf. I think it shows that we are ready to take things further if we need to, but we hope that the agreement stands. Because had land prices shot up, would they have allowed us to put up another few million? I very much doubt it. Thank you.
Thank you. We need a second of that recommendation. I'm happy to second that, and I think Councillor Stevens is right to set out paragraph 18. I think very much so in the context of what Mr. Metcalf said when he spoke earlier. So, if we move, I do apologise, Councillor Stewart, I didn't give you the option to speak earlier, if you want to come in briefly.
Yes, thank you. Just to highlight the fact that this matter was discussed at scrutiny, and indeed, as Chair of Scrutiny, I have been consulted on the matter and agreed that the cooling provision should be disapplied. I can also confirm that the board member was appraised of the situation and also would have supported that decision had he been in that role. I note the point that concern that was raised at scrutiny to 2 points really that came up. One was the 3-month period from the 11th of February when you were notified through letter, and the pressure that it seems to have come under, and wonder whether it could have been done a bit quicker. And then the other one is at point 2 on paragraph 18 in the public papers. I assume, I'm making an assumption, that the issue regarding the impact of the freehold handover now being immediate and the risks associated with that have been fully considered.
Could you deal with those briefly?
Yes, Chairman. Clearly, we were opposed to the ASDA position on the 11th of February, but it takes two to negotiate. Trying to work through those positions and those issues and get to understand the issues and then get a negotiating position to a considerable amount of time. So that's why we're not able to appraise members as we've gone along. We've certainly tried to work out and had to take appropriate legal advice to get us to where we need to get to. I think in terms of the freehold transfer, there is a risk in the freehold transfer straight away. The store is not developed straight away. And ultimately, at some point in the future, if the store is not developed, there is the possibility that as they may try and do something else with the site or sell the site on. That is one of the risks that's evaluated in the paper. But I think we have to look at that in the context of the planning designation for the site, which is employment by industrial land. It's adjacent to the Pan housing development, which has still got the 600 houses to be built on it. So I think in terms of anything like that may happen, it may be a long time into the future if that's a plan. And I don't believe that Aston would want to complete the deal knowing that they might not get a return until a long time into the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if we move to the vote, Councillor Fuller.
For.
Councillor Hillard.
Oh,
Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Smart.
Oh,
Councillor Stevens.
For.
Councillor Stubbings. 4. 9-4. There's 7 in favour. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Walters, for filming unobtrusively. I'm not sure you'll make a fortune at the multiplexes with this one. It seemed to work well. So, thank you. I hope that's not a comment on my chair. Thank you very much, everyone. The meeting is closed.
glass fibre. And then we intercepted a few months ago some concerns about the houses and premises in Ningwood and part of Wellow were served by a cabinet that was further away than the nearest cabinet. The latest update I had was that Openreach, who roll out in the UK, are actively planning to reparent some of the properties. Now, I don't know how many that is and what that is, but what that basically means is that they will intercept a cable and take it to the cabinet in Cranmore rather than in Boldner, which should mean that more houses in Ningwood and Wellow should be within the limits of getting a benefit out of superfast broadband than otherwise if we had done nothing. So this could be really good for some. I don't know how the quantities or anything like that, but presumably they're intercepting in something called reparenting. You're going to do 1, you're going to do 10, you're going to do 30, 40, 50 or something like that.
That's when they're always at the top of our lane.
There is cabinet there, yeah.
They're always up.
Well, that's not. That is where a lot of Wellow's parents are in now. We want to make sure that houses in particularly Ningwood going out towards the Ningwood station are parented from the cabinet in Cranmore Avenue. And otherwise, the distance is too great. Speeds will drop off the cliff after about 2.5 kilometres, and hopefully we've thought this early enough that we can do something about it. So we'll keep a watch on it.
It might be that, I don't know the exact distances, but cabinet at Winchester Corner might actually closer to some.
Yes, it might be closer geographically, but there's probably no cables between it and Wellow, so yeah, we shall see. But we're better off than we were. That's it.
Steve?
It's been covered. My main concern is with John and Stuart about the crossing issue. My next step is to inform Meg that it's much as it was going to be in the past.
Well, you just have to talk to Meg and see what you can sort out.
Yeah.
She's amenable as long as she's told everything, even if there's nothing to say.
Yeah, we get on with it.
Yeah.
It's just not very good.
I've only got one issue really, and I don't know whether it is an issue. My husband said he was round at the bubble bag the other day, and there was a load of fly tipping there. Has anybody else noticed that?
Well, there's a mystery attached to this. Nothing simple, is it? Because I think I had 3 reports of fly tipping on one day, including a French. And I said to you about it, and I phoned Mark Churcher, who said, I'm doing a dump run, I will pick it up en route. And when he went there, it had gone. So whoever fly tipped, somebody has already cleared it up. So I'm not saying don't report things to me, but I mean, if that happens again, that's wonderful.
The best way to get rid of moral fringe is to put it in your front garden, put the sign on it and put it in the mouth and somebody will nick it.
Well, I did that with my TV stand. It's very fun.
Even if it doesn't work, somebody will nick it. That's what they do in Australia. Put it around on it 25 quid, somebody thought, put that one. And then when they get it home, it doesn't work. So
They didn't do that with my TV stand. It's like a charity shop.
Okay, finance. We're going to put your
Oh, yes,
bit in
that's
here.
all right. So basically, it was to agree for Val Taylor to cover tonight and 2 weeks in the office when I'm off, mileage and wages, and also for my 4 days annual leave.
Right, can we put that on 100 pounds, please? Second. Brenda, all those in favour? To approve the list of payments.
Should all have a copy?
I must admit, the breakdown of the first item on here for the installing notice boards and maintenance of Golden Field is very reasonable for what the gentleman did. I don't know whether you've got it there.
He is
but
excellent, yeah. I mean, he did,
he did an awful lot of work for that, didn't he? What was it now?
he takes off the seeding area with hazard tape at Golden the field. He shored up the sign, which was the 2 posts, and cleaned off the graffiti, bearing in mind that's right across the other side of the field. He removed the rubbish from the corner of the field, which was all sorts of polystyrene and plastic. He re-tensioned the yellow access gate to self-close. He attended to the large metal vehicular access gate, moved the catch post to fit, and I have to say it opens beautifully now. That was all £60, labour, tape and sundries, and then he took down the old notice boards and fit the new one for £25. So it was a total of
I think that is excellent.
Yeah, he's a good chap.
Wonderful value.
I won't tell him too much because he might put his price.
No, we won't. We'll keep that one.
But I'll say you did thank him.
Yes. Can I have a proposal for the finances, secretary? Helena, all those in favour?
Can we have, as we go towards the end of the quarter review, or in July, some kind of reconciliation of where we are against
Yes.
what we said we would do? I know that's going to be July, not the end of June, but we've got things in. It'd be good just to reconcile where we are.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can you wait to put that in your diary?
I will.
Just like somebody did an audit, had an audit done yesterday, you said.
Today, internal audit.
Oh, I'm only really sorry, against what we said we would do this year. It's only really a kind of, it's at the end of the quarter against what we said we would do. So
Where we are, what we've... There's supposed to be, somebody said it was due.
Well, if we're not doing it, we're going.
Well, they've said that they're not normally doing.
So I don't know where Gareth's got the information from. Anybody else?
Can I just speak a little bit about NASA? Would that be okay?
Well, very briefly, because this is a question and answer.
Oh, right.
Have you got much to say?
No, just to say that reiterating a lot of what Stuart's been saying there, perhaps this lady might sort of say about to enforce the speed limits that get them reduced, you need data from the police, etc., and that's not going to be available, as you all well know. We as a group are involved with Community Speed Watch, and we would willingly come out and do some speed watch and provide the data with you.